right, so the last couple of weeks and what we took our test on Friday was one-step equations, right? So that means that it only took one step to get to your answer. Today we're learning how to solve two-step equations. So that means there's going to be 2 steps until we find our answer, okay? So in order to solve a two-step equation, we're going to have to use what we learned with one-step equations, okay? So everything is the same. So you're still using those addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division properties of equalities to solve for x. You're just having to do it in 2 steps instead of 1, okay? So the first step is to undo the addition or the subtraction, and then undo the multiplication or division. So we're going in the reverse order of our order of operations. So remember we have PEMDAS, or parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's our order of operations, right? So when we're solving equations, we're going in reverse order. So we're going to deal with addition and subtraction first. Once we do that, we're going to move on to multiplication and division. Okay? So let's look at an example. Remember, when I'm solving equations, I have to solve and what? Check. So don't forget to solve and check. So my first example, we've got 4x plus 5 equals 13. So they look similar to what we were doing. Here we just have a variable and a constant. Okay. So I'm still trying to solve for x. But the first step that I have to do, remember in my notes, what did it say we do first?
Remove the subtraction and addition.
You undo the addition or the subtraction first. So here I have a plus 5, right? So I want to undo that addition. How do I undo that addition?
Turn it into the opposite of multiplication.
No. Subtract. It's the opposite of addition, so that means I've got to subtract from both sides. I'm subtracting 5 from both sides. So when I do that, this plus 5 minus 5 cancels out. And it leaves me with 4x. And then what's 13 minus 5? 8. So it leaves me with 4x equals 8. Now I have a one-step equation. So after I undo my addition and subtraction, my second step is to do what?
Remove the multiplication and addition.
Good. Undo the multiplication. So if I'm undoing that multiplication, that means I'm doing what, Sierra? That means I'm dividing both sides by 4. So when I do that, my 4x divided by 4, that leaves me with what?
X equals 2.
Leaves me with 1x, and then 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. Why don't I see anything? So my answer is x equals 2. But am I done?
No, you have to check.
Gotta check it. So remember, when I'm checking it, that means that I'm just plugging in my answer of x wherever I see x, okay, into my original equation. So that means I have 4 times 2 plus 5 equals 13. And then I want to solve that left-hand side to see if it actually equals 13. Okay. So what's 4 times 2?
8.
8. So I have 8 plus 5 equals 13. And then what's 8 plus 5?
13.
13. So 13 equals 13, and I know that my answer is correct. So we're undoing our addition and subtraction first, and then we are undoing that multiplication or division. Okay. Questions on number 1? All right, let's look at another example. Negative 3y minus 5 equals 10. So I'm still solving for y. So what does that mean my first step is going to be? Sierra. Undo the subtraction on this one, right? So if I'm undoing the subtraction, that means I have to do what?
Add.
That means I have to add 5 to both sides. So then my negative 5 and my plus 5 cancel out. So that leaves me with negative 3y on the left-hand side. And then 10 plus 5? 15. So it equals 15. Now I'm left with a one-step equation. Sierra. Now I need to undo the multiplication. And by undo multiplication, what does that mean we're doing? That means we're dividing. So I'm dividing negative 3y by what? Negative 3. Not negative 3y. Because remember, I'm solving for y. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So that means my negative 3's cancel, and it leaves me with y is equal to
Negative 5.
negative 5. Good. Now I need to check it to see if I'm really right. So that means I'm plugging in negative 5 wherever I see y. So I have negative 3 times negative 5 minus 5 equals 10. And then I'm solving the left-hand side. So what's negative 3 times negative 5?
Negative 15.
Negative 15?
The positive 15.
Positive 15. Because those two negatives, when you multiply two negatives, you always get a positive. So that means I have 15 minus 5 equals 10. Is 15 minus 5 10?
Yes.
Yes. Questions on this example? We good? All right, let's look at example number 3. I've got negative 2 plus 2/3 w equals 10. Negative 2 plus 2/3 w equals 10. So what is my first step?
Undoing the addition.
Undoing the addition or subtraction?
Subtraction.
Subtraction, right? Because this is a negative 2, which is the same as subtracting. So in order to get that negative 2 to the other side, I have to add, right? So that means I'm undoing subtraction. So I'm adding 2 to both sides. So that leaves me with 0 on the left-hand side plus 2/3 w equals what?
8.
12. 10 plus 2 gives me 12. So now I have 2/3 W equals 12. So how am I solving for W? Somebody other than Sierra, tell me how I'm solving for W. Alexa.
You have to, put 2/3.
Okay. So multiply by its reciprocal, or that multiplicative inverse, right? So that means I'm multiplying both sides by the flip of 2/3, which Alexa said was 3/2. Okay. Remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm multiplying by its multiplicative inverse.
Wait, where are you multiplying?
Right here. I've got 2/3 W, and I want to get that to be a 1W. So that means I'm multiplying by its multiplicative inverse, which is 3/2. Or you can either divide both sides by 2/3, right? Either way, it doesn't matter. You will still get the same answer. As long as you're plugging it in your calculator, though. If you're doing it by longhand, then if you divide by that fraction, it's going to take you a whole lot longer than multiplying by the reciprocal. So if I do that, that leaves me with W equals 8. Do we all agree? Is it 8 or 18?
It's 18.
I got 18 earlier too.
I got
18.
So if I plug it in, that means I have 12 times 3/2. That gives me 18. No, you should get the same thing if you divide.
Miss Weathers,
Yes, sir.
may I borrow Isaac to listen in the student office, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I put 3 over. I put 2 over 3. But should I get the same answer?
If you divide, you're dividing by 2/3. But if you're multiplying, then that means you're multiplying by the reciprocal. So you should always get 18, either way you do it.
I don't know.
Remember, if you multiply, then that means you have to multiply by its multiplicative inverse. But if you divide by the same fraction they give you. So if I wanted to divide here, I'm dividing by 2/3. But if I'm multiplying by the flip, which is 3/2. So remember, if you use its multiplicative inverse, that means you're multiplying. Hence the name multiplicative inverse. All right, so am I done yet? Got to check it. So that means I have -2 plus 2/3 times 18 equals 10. So somebody tell me what 2/3 times 18 is. 12. Somebody else see if they got the same one. Same answer. 12? Okay. So that means I have -2 plus 12 equals 10. Is that right? Yes. 10 equals 10. So my answer is correct. Questions? Do you think you know how to do this on your own?
Yes.
So are you ready to start on your classwork and homework?
Yes.
Okay. Sierra. The same. Because this means 2/3 W, right? So that means it's 2/3 times W. So if you're doing the opposite, that's division. Or you can multiply by the multiplicative inverse. Alright, so your classwork homework is on the board under Math 7, page 233, 9 through 25 odd, and number 29. So I'll write it up here if you can't see it. Page 233. Alright, so there's no talking because you are working on your homework, classwork homework.